Nothing yet.
I see it on mine.
A bunch of volunteers chatting around.
Okay. All right, I call to order the meeting of the Hartford Select Board at 6 o'clock. And before we begin, this meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. One member of this public body or other staff is present at the location to ensure the public can participate if desired. Please note that while we strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it is important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If a member of the public or of the public body has technical difficulties accessing this meeting remotely, please alert us by email to selectboard@hartford-vt.org. In the event of a technical difficulty that cannot be resolved, we may continue the meeting if necessary to time and place certain. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. As required by the open meeting law, let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance of all members participating in the meeting and have those members attending remotely identify themselves to ensure that they can hear and be heard throughout the meeting. I will start with Miranda.
Here.
Ida?
Here.
Mike?
Here.
Tim?
Here.
Eric? Okay, usually you say, I can see and I can hear. That way we know both work.
I can see you and I can hear you, and I hope you can hear me.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, and Ashley may or may not be on Zoom because she had a work-related issue. So we will start then with the Pledge of Allegiance. Is there someone in the room who would like to lead us?
Sure.
Thanks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Scott. Right. Any changes to the order of agenda? And we will move forward to public comment. Is there anybody in the room who would like to make a public comment? If not, Miranda, is there anybody online? Or okay, all right. So we will close public comment. Then we will move to select board comments and announcements. Tim, you want to start? Do you have anything?
I don't believe I do.
All right. Mike?
Nothing from me.
All right. Ida?
No comments.
Miranda? Eric?
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
Okay, and nothing for me. Thank you. And so then we will move into board report motions and ordinances. We're going to start with the need to ratify emergency decision to authorize spending on fire alarm problem.
Okay, thank you. I think most of you have been given updates by John kind of periodically as this occurred, but just to summarize, on Sunday, excuse me, at approximately the time of the daylight savings transition, both the primary and backup AES and Telenet radio box receivers failed simultaneously, rendering the town's municipal fire alarm system inoperable. As a result, none of our fire alarm clients throughout the community were able to transmit alarms to our communication center. Fire department personnel, including on-duty and off-duty staff and the fire marshal's office, immediately began notifying affected clients to use 911 for all local alarm activations. Initial troubleshooting began Sunday, and funding approval was requested by me to the town manager and the finance director for approval to replace this system. A temporary solution was developed in collaboration with the AES Corporation, and a new system was installed and brought back online within 48 hours of the incident. Full restoration and modernization efforts continued throughout the week by staff. And Tuesday, we were online late that afternoon, and I need to thank my staff for really stepping up and getting this all done pretty much around the clock to get these systems back up online. So tonight, we're looking for your authorization to ratify our emergency purchase that happened in the amount of $23,000. And just to update as well, in canceling the security information system contract, I was just notified by them late this afternoon that they're returning back to us $11,666. So nearly cutting this purchase in half.
Great.
And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Scott? Eric, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. Glad to hear that we're getting $11,600+ back, though.
All right, I will accept the motion. Hey,
I'll give it my first shot. It's my
All
first
right.
shot. I'm a little nervous, but here we go. I move that the select board retroactively approve the emergency purchase authorization made by the fire chief, finance director, and town manager on November 2nd, 2025 for the immediate repair and replacement of the town's municipal fire alarm receivers, which suffered a catastrophic failure, rendering the system inoperable. This emergency action included the purchase of AES IntelliNet Network Control Center software, including the self-monitoring bundle and maintenance plan at a total cost of $23,000. The purchase was necessary to restore critical public safety infrastructure and ensure continued alarm monitoring for municipal and private fire alarm clients. Funding for this purchase is available within the fire department's approved fiscal year 26 budget. The select board acknowledges the urgency of the situation and supports the fire chief, finance director, and town manager's decision to act in the interest of public safety. The board further directs the fire chief to continue efforts to recover any unused funds from the canceled SIS software contract.
is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Mike seconds the motion. I'm gonna take a roll call vote, even though I'm sure it's unanimous, but I think it's best that way. Miranda?
Aye.
Ida?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so it's 6-0. All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Scott.
Yep. Thanks, Chief.
Yes. Okay.
It's like spelling bee.
All right, so then we are moving on to 3B, FY27 budget presentation, Bugbee.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
I did prepare slides that I'll be referencing. I don't know how to pull them up or advance through them, but
I can do that.
yay. Okay, great. We'll do our best. All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about what's going on at Bugbee Senior Center. In previous years, I like to talk a little bit about what's been going on both with the Council on Aging and with the operations at the Senior Center, just to give you an idea, unless you are in the habit of coming every day. So I thought I'd start with a few program highlights from 2025. We had our first international trip in many years to Tuscany, which was completely full. They took so many photos, I couldn't really fit them into the presentation, but they had a good time. We'll put it that way. I don't think I've ever seen them so tired as when they got back. Now those trips, of course, are pricey as it involves, hotels and flights. So we kind of upped our mini trips. There's plenty to see and do in the Upper Valley. And in partnership with Parks and Rec, they let us use their van during times that it wasn't needed for Parks and Rec programs. And so we were able to bring many more people around this year to different sites in the Upper Valley at a much more affordable cost. We're talking about the cost of lunch for people. So We did our second annual Bugbee Games. We had another season of the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, which was great. In that program, we distribute coupons to income eligible people who can then redeem them at local farmers markets for produce. On the topic of produce, we also continued with Locally Yours. That's a CSA share program. If anybody participates in a CSA share, you know that it's a lot of food usually. And if you're just one or two people and not really cooking a lot at home, it's too much. So this program allows access to fresh vegetables, and people can just take what they need. And it's been very popular. Bugbee also got recognition at the state legislature. We were invited to bring a delegation there, acknowledging the value of Meals on Wheels statewide and to acknowledge the work of our state association. And along with 2 other senior centers were noted for the quality of our meal programs. The calendar is so full of things that, I could probably go on all night, but just to give you an idea, I will say this, we don't have fully complete records going all the way back to 1976 when the Council on Aging was formed. But from what I can tell, this was the highest meal count on record. Our kitchen and staff produced over 35,000 meals, which is pretty astonishing. We also approved our 3-year strategic plan. So we're in a position now where we're able to start looking at longer range planning than we have in the past. I wanted to give a special thank you to Christy Hazen, who retired this year after 15 years as our head cook, and Eleanor Zhu, who retired after, she doesn't allow me to say for sure, but it's in the environs of 4 decades of service at Bugbee as our social worker. And outgoing board members Sheila Bean, Donald Blake, Patty Greenan, and Steve Toffel. So in the past, I've done a slide that has a bunch of logos and stuff, but we have had so many people interested in partnering with us on programs and services and providing space support, in-kind goods, financial support. I've just had to start listing them out. I did forget Chuck Worcester and his team at Sunrise Farm for the Locally Yours thing. They've been great to work with. So I just love it. It's just great being able to work with such a variety of people. So before we dive into numbers, because we have a unique relationship with the town and that we're not a government department within the municipality, we're an independent nonprofit, just a brief overview of how the nonprofit works. So our board and staff routinely conduct outreach to learn about the community's needs and aspirations. Quite a bit of it this year, thanks to the strategic planning process. This engagement then informs the mission and our service delivery models. And so we currently have 3 charitable divisions, and those divisions are supported by a pretty lean administrative and fundraising apparatus. So our organizational chart, we have 7 regularly scheduled staff people. That comes out to about 5.1 full-time equivalents. This is supplemented by about 120 volunteers who have donated over 7,500 hours during fiscal year 2025. A lot of the administration, payroll, accounting, and such, we outsource that. And overall, we have a really great and well-equipped team behind the scenes that has really been helping to cope with a lot of the growth in demand from the community. You can see, unfortunately, for the year ahead, we have had to leave the social work office vacant following Eleanor Zhu's retirement in order to reallocate resources towards the nutrition program, but we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get towards the budget. So here's a breakdown of the people using services at Bugbee. So about half of all of the individuals that come to Bugbee or who use Bugbee are from Hartford, and they account for close to 70% of all of the meals, activities, attendance figures, all that stuff. The next slide shows the breakdown sort of by program division. I did highlight Meals on Wheels because that's by far the largest program at Bugbee. Hartford, we saw a 15% increase in service use overall from all towns. It was a 14% increase. I'm astonished with 5.1 full-time equivalents that we have exceeded over 50,000 service units. It's a little hard to look back on it and be like, oh, wow, we did that. That's pretty cool. Congregate lunch, surprisingly, has traditionally been the second largest program, but this year our enrichment and wellness programs has actually exceeded the attendance for congregate lunch. Social services is the only program area that's been on the decline, not because of decreased need in the community, but because of the vacancy in the office. We have been able to find some partners or volunteers to help with Medicare advice, benefits enrollment. And this summer we had the temporary outreach worker for the farmers market program. And existing staff, we are still coordinating volunteer rides to medical appointments and durable medical equipment loans. So there is still some activity in that division. Volunteering we tend to include as well because it's as much a service as it is a help for operations. Most of our volunteers are older adults and retirees themselves. This helps promote civic engagement, social connection, and helps people keep their sense of purpose later into life while giving a really meaningful contribution to the community. So I am working on compiling statistics on community use of the center. It's always been intended from, back in 1978 when the select board decided to build Bugbee, that it serves a dual purpose as a senior center and community center. And the town has a really important stake in making it available for that. So the last count that we had for the year was over 100 individual bookings, and many of those bookings were multi-day. So to give it a sense of scale, for the final quarter of this year, so between October and the end of the year, there were only 2 weekends that don't have a booking outside of the holidays. And actually, I just got one of those is booked now. So the facility is extraordinarily well used. It's getting increasingly challenging simply to find space, and our planning windows had to move further and further out as the calendar fills up. So if anybody's watching and you want to have an event at Bugbee, let us know soon. We'll do what we can. So again, because we're a separate organization, I wanted to give some information about the financial performance for the Council on Aging. We just closed our fiscal year 25. It ends in September. We follow the federal calendar. So I don't have exact figures until the CPA is done with the financial review. But tentatively, I can say that revenue grew by around 9%, up to $670,000 for the year. Expenses did outpace that by 2%, landing in at $720,000. The reserves and investments did not our reserves that are in investments didn't perform as well this year. So we are anticipating a loss for this fiscal year. The share that you see from fiscal year 24 is going to be very similar for fiscal year 25. Revenue was bolstered by strong support from the state government, from participants, and from fundraising. Most of the increases to expenses were led by program costs, food, kitchen supplies, other program supplies, unsurprisingly, with a 14% increase in attendance and use. We did expand hours for kitchen staff to help accommodate the increase in meal production, and saw increased insurance and maintenance costs. So just looking at our financial performance, which are all these bar charts, which I invite you to spend a lot of time looking at. So we had an operating loss in 24 that was balanced by the reserve accounts. This year, we have an operating loss and about break even for the reserves, which is what I mean when I say that we had an operating loss. For the year that we're in now, for fiscal year 26, we were hoping for an operating budget much closer to break even. And despite the influx in funding available for senior nutrition that came from the state legislature, Senior Solutions notified us in September. So Senior Solutions is the agency that basically passes funding to meal sites for things like Meals on Wheels. There's a funding cap in place this year that could be, based on our projections, this could be up to 20% reduction in revenue from what we saw last year. So it'll be interesting to navigate this year. It does mean that to avoid potentially disastrous service cuts and a large deficit we can't cope with, we are going to continue to leave the social work office vacant. But I will say we are so grateful that the town has started the community nurse program. The scope of that program is very different from what our approach is in our social work office, but just having that resource there has set a baseline for our referral network and has really helped make sure that some of the most complex cases have not fallen through the cracks. So turning to the part that you're interested in, is the town's share of what it costs to run Bugbee. So 25 was a little bit complicated. So you might look at a 52% variance for snowplow and wonder what's up with that. So the fiscal year 25 budget cycle was not prepared for one of the coldest winters in decades, combined with an unusually high number of snow events that required the plow to be sent out probably, I don't know, more than double what it was the year prior. So we were aware, given how poor the insulation was in the building, that we're vulnerable to extreme seasons and extreme weather events. But we weren't really sure after we went all electric for our utilities how much it will be. But now we have a better sense because by the end of the winter, the glide path was impossible. There was really nothing left to cut to make budget. And this is why, like, the repair line item for the 2025 actuals was only $3,000 because all of the rest of that budget was reallocated to cover utilities. So what you see in the appropriations report and presented here, the $139,613,000, that was the full budget for 25. What it actually costed with the overages was $145,000. So to help protect the town's assets and frankly just to keep the lights on, the White River Council on Aging did reallocate funds that were earmarked for senior center services to help the town pay those bills. And that's part of the reason why we are asking for an increase in the portion of the budget that is designated for senior center services, just to help make up the difference for that contribution. Following the select board's budget guidance memo to prioritize infrastructure maintenance and having the building committee recently formed, we will soon be presenting to you a recommendation that includes a separate list of urgent capital needs. So the operating budget really contains just basic and routine maintenance, not even really anything for a contingency there. So it's a lean budget. There are no capital reserves for the Bugbee building. So the recommendation from the committee will include some projects that whatever happens with the future of the building and however many years it takes to get there, these are things that are going to happen now to ensure continuity of operations.
And compliance with fire code,
and compliance with fire code, yeah. And thank you to Scott and the fire department for stopping the beeping from the fire alarm system that was going on for 2 days. They're remarkable people. As always, we are extremely grateful for the town's continued partnership. Bugbee is one of the most vibrant rural senior centers in northern New England. I'm fortunate to extend this gratitude on behalf of our team at Bugbee, at our participants, their families, all of the community groups that benefit from the facility. Our partnership extends beyond the building. We really enjoy working with Parks and Rec, with the community nurse, with emergency services to help look after our neighbors. And this unique partnership is it has to be among the main reasons why Bugbee is such a special place within Hartford and among senior centers in general, and why this is a good place to grow older. So thank you, and open to any questions.
Have any questions? Ida?
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for this presentation and everything that you do over at Bugbee, your leadership. Just curious, I understand the rationale for keeping the vacancy of the social worker position, needing to make up for some of the anticipated, tightness in the budget and everything that you're doing to increase the nutrition offerings. And you mentioned that that position, that social worker offered different services distinct from what the community nurse is now doing. So could you just talk a little bit about what those services were, just so we have a sense of what gaps might look like, or, what the town might, gaps in the town services, basically.
Yeah, in the past, that position was really meant to supplement the work that is designated to the Area Agency on Aging, which is very much focused on benefits assistance, helping people enroll, navigate the system as they grow older. What had been morphing into until we decided to leave the position vacant was really more comprehensive than that, and focused on helping people age at home in the setting of their own choice, making sure that if they needed home modifications, we could connect them with people. If they needed help with chores, we could develop a network of volunteers that might be able to help with that. So some of those things we've had to put on hold because we really need, there's only so many hours in the day and we don't have staff to work on it. Some of it I think we can continue through volunteers and to really help flesh out what the program is turning into until we're at the point where we have the resources to rehire for it. So it's tough right now. I will be honest, to have people come in asking for help and we're not really sure where to send them. But we will sit with them and follow up with them until we're able to figure things out as best as we can. And we're certainly working at it, at finding alternative funding sources. So.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Eric, do you have any questions for Mark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I don't. Thank you for your presentation, Mark.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, see you soon.
Yeah, take care.
So we will move on then to FY 27 budget presentation, Department of Public Works and Highway.
Shoulder's getting better.
Oh, good.
Doing some PT.
Want me to get that for you, Brian?
I can get it. Just have to. Left arm is not still as best as it should be. So, thank you. Yes.
Do you want to share it?
Yeah, I've got it. I totally forgot I had a whole nother pocket over there. Thankfully, the battery charger was in there, so I can do it.
Nice picture, by the way.
Yeah, what is that?
There's a story behind that picture.
Yeah, I want to
believe me.
know. So I'm like, that's not the DPW.
That is our cattle crossing.
Are we
picture.
getting around this?
Oh, I remember this story.
That is a cattle crossing.
We had a resident who wanted the town's help to get some cattle crossing signage across that busy road of his.
Ah,
So that was sort of kind of like a throw to Jeremy. Just to do that.
What do they call that? An Easter egg for Jeremy.
I guess I need to. Let me just make sure I have it there.
We can fund a cow tunnel.
Right, there you go.
Right. Technically challenged here a little bit. Let me see where we are.
Is there an arrow function, I wonder?
Well,
to
it's
advance?
there. I'm trying to. Open up. There we go. Now let me share. Share. And I have to figure out how to make that. I'm trying to think how to get rid of the sidebar over there.
if you go to No, wait. It's too far away. Go to view.
Go to view.
At the, yeah. And there's.
Sometimes they'll have like a little hide arrow if you scroll over to that.
There's no one where it's just like view a slideshow or something.
Yeah. I don't see.
There is a slideshow I see, about 3 or 4 to the right, Brian,
Jeez.
in the red slideshow.
Oh, yes.
I clearly
Yes,
didn't
that one.
go to the.
From beginning to end.
There we go.
There.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the help. Good evening. This is the first of, we have 6 budgets to go through tonight. From the general fund and then 5 for the enterprise funds for that. So let me just make sure I go through here. So as we've always started off in the past, here's our current organizational chart. There are a couple of vacancies that we have. We have, if you start from left to right, we have the part-time position at the transfer station that's vacant for right now, but we are interviewing for that position. And then also going across, wastewater is fully staffed at this time. I will be, if you've read through there, I will be looking for, hopefully discussing tonight with you, adding another position to supplement those 2 divisions there. Water, Mike Martin, who's been with us for about 4 or 5 years now, is moving on. His last day is tomorrow, so I put it down as vacant. We'll be missing Mike, and we'll thank him for his years of service that he's given to the town. Mike's been a very dedicated employee. And then lastly, we have a highway position, in which we are interviewing for that now. Actually, we just offered it to somebody, so that one is, that block will be filled out. He came in today and signed his paperwork.
Beautiful.
For that, so, and with that, then too, when we start off, that would be talking to you about increasing highway by 2 positions. As I'm, to propose that for them, as we move forward, so. But besides that, we're fully staffed. Everybody's doing a great job. Quick overview. I know within the budget guidance, I definitely try to maintain what was given to us for budget guidance. And as you can see, I was pretty much to put everything in the red except for everything. And one of the big issues for that is that, especially for like in highway and the water and wastewater, this year, we're not looking for any vehicle purchases. So that's one of the big reasons why we don't have that couple of $100,000 or $100,000.
What about that snowplow,
The
sidewalk snow?
Yeah, that's a $40,000 purchase.
Right.
That's just small, but not like a $200,000 purchase for that. So, so that's one of the offsets with that. Why you see a lot of the negative numbers is we're not getting any big equipment purchases.
Sorry, Brian. I have a question. Thank you. So is this including the proposed positions that you want to add?
No. I was told not to put that in there. So
Okay.
you'll see within my narrative, it adds how much is in there. So this does not include those proposed.
Brian will
positions.
remember the conversation when I reminded him about the guidance.
Yeah.
He had a first draft that included them. And I said, no, Brian, we want to see a budget proposal that is strictly maintaining and keeping kind of bare bones with the opportunity to ask for a supplement during your presentation.
And I could update this at any, if that's want to see, then I can update this very quickly and provide that to you. So. But besides Queechee Water, like I said, overall, all of them are was able to be in the negative for that. It's just a standard what we go through here. Now, administration, we have several of us who are paid throughout all the different funds administratively wise. Here just gives that quick breakdown of who's what, and then for the enterprise fund for John's, finance director, Dana, and just gives you a breakdown of what the percentage is. So when we have our spreadsheet, what's called the census that we keep, all these positions are included in there. So when you get, go through the budget, it's a big breakdown.
For example, the town manager's salary and benefits are paid 70% out of the general fund, and then the other 30% is split equally among the five enterprise funds: Hartford Water, Queechee Water, Hartford sewer, Queechee sewer, and solid waste. Just an example.
Which is a good thing because it helps eliminate, they have the action with it, they're responsible for it, but it also helps offset those expenses within the general fund. I have an old saying, if it was up to me, everybody would be in the water fund because there's nobody tax exempt then, right? Everybody's paying for it, right? Some of our priorities for administration, I think the key one obviously will be, the continued transition for the new DPW director coming in. You're always going to have your retention of staff and recruitment and try to keep everybody growing as much as possible in the positions that they're in. Key thing that we do administratively is provide that administrative support to the other divisions and making sure that they have, whether it be procurement, HR, whatever it might be. That's a main function that we do. Then also too, this is something that Chris has been working on, is we're going to be, we've started already. We have the 2 grants for the water asset management. It will be getting them underway and having them completed in FY27 for those 2 systems. And also the development of an asset management plans for the water systems. We're going to next week a proposal for looking at a more robust asset management actual program, software. And that will be something that goes down to the transition from PubWorks to a new multifaceted asset management, work order, GIS, and fleet management software. Currently, right now, the program we use, PubWorks, is pretty limited. We use it basically for fleet maintenance, keeping track of what's been done. Fire department uses it. And the new highway foreman started to use it a little bit more for job tasking. We can actually keep track of what we're doing with like work and how much, what crews assigned for what job, how much money and materials. So we're starting to start that now to where we can actually start to have like, okay, on this road, it costs us X amount of money to do X, Y, and Z. Bad thing is though, is that PubWorks is going away. They were bought out. A company called GWorks is phasing the software out. We were told by March of next year. It'll be gone. So Chris started really looking at it, and we've come up with, and he's done his due diligence. And next week we'll be giving him, you guys will be getting an overview of the software that he's going to be recommending.
And some demonstrations, I believe.
Demonstration for that. We have to move in that direction if we really want to increase efficiency. And besides efficiency, transparency, accountability, we really need to take a look at the software Chris is going to be presenting to you next week for that. So. The other thing too is still, once again, it's going to be a multi-year, it's keeping up with the EPA, that LCRR is a lead copper rule revision. It's an EPA mandated. We've actually submitted last year, but we've submitted our 2 inventories. We continue to do inspections. The next one that will be coming up in a few years, and you'll see within the water, is we're actually going to be mandated to have to go out and replace galvanized. We don't have many. I don't even think we found any lead lines yet.
Talking about service lines and
the service lines that we're going to be required. There's going to be a requirement to replace even galvanized lines, which we do have quite a few of within the. And so that's going to be something that's going to be coming down the road that we're going to have to take a look. You have to take a look at for that. Still working on the water and sanitary rate studies. It's taken a little bit longer than we anticipated due to the complexity of the Queechee rate study. But that's something I'm still working on with Ashley Luce, and we'll have it as wrapped up as I possibly can before the time I get out of here. But I think it will probably continue on after my time here. And the other thing too, Chris and I have been talking about, is we really need to take a look at the review of our different ordinances that we have and actually draft them and have them be to exactly how we're doing things. A lot of what we're doing. There's a lot of steps in there where you as a select board would still be involved that just have gotten away with over the years, like the water commissioners and who does what. So it really would be a review of the ordinances and have them actually be the way we're actually doing business and going from there. That's quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit of work to try to take on
Sure.
in that year. So.
I mean, you mentioned water commissioners. Can I just ask you a question? Does anybody know the history of whether the town of Hartford has ever had an independent water and sewer commission?
I think at one time they probably did, John. You read the ordinance, it takes I think at one point they did, then it sort of kind of morphed to the select board.
Yeah, because I mean,
Um,
in little town of Pittsford that I used to manage, we had a separate water and sewer commission that could really get into the weeds of water and sewer matters and bring important decisions to the select board, but basically work parallel to the board, which appointed them. And you would think that in a much more complex town with so many more moving parts and pieces, maybe the select board might want to revisit that sometime and reestablish a water and sewer commission. That's just a topic for another day, but since you mentioned it, I thought I would.
No, and then that's
pipe in.
because like I say, there's a lot of things within our current ordinances that the select board should be sort of looking at. But we've sort of not, it hasn't been that way for, I don't know how long. But it's just really bringing the practices that we do in line and the ordinances together with that, so. So we get into highway. This is a pretty standard, but I did update it a little bit to include a little bit more information. Basically 132 miles of class 1, 2, and 3 roads, which it's commonly known we maintain the most amount of roads of any town in the state. I got an update. I was surprised with this. We've been saying 12 miles, but 2 rivers of souls, this does not include the new work out by the aquatic center, about 19 miles of sidewalk. We have the 23 bridges and 5 municipal parking lots that ultimately we're responsible for. So it's quite a bit for a town of our size, what we need to maintain. And it gives in just basically what does highway do? The stuff we typically think about: snow removal, debris, line striping, and whatnot. And then I also include, a lot of people don't realize that they do quite a bit assist water and the wastewater divisions with work that they do. I think you've seen in some of my SIGACs that highway is always assisting water whenever there's a water main break with the digging and stuff like that. So just, just recognizing that besides the normal duties that they do, these are a lot of the other duties that they do to assist the other divisions within DPW. Like I say, this is the current staffing level where we're at. Basically, we have 10 individuals in the highway. My proposal is for us to take a look at adding 2 equipment operator 1 positions. And just to get them going to more, a lot of what this comes into is that what we're trying to achieve, with this year we have the equipment operator 2 position. We only had 1 before, is setting up 2 crews that can go out and do work under the guidance of the highway foreman and the assistant director of operations. So examples would be, I don't know if I got that on the next slide though, would be an increase in summer maintenance to include pothole repairs, stormwater, sending, just a case today, they were out putting a cross culvert in for a paving project. What it takes for the time that you have somebody in the excavator, at least 1 individual on the ground, also being safety. We have to have 2 flaggers, okay? You have to have an individual in the truck, if not 1 of 2 individuals, hauling material. That's basically taking up the 10 individuals from there. And so then maybe we have 1 or 2 other individuals, somebody's out doing roadside mowing or doing something else. If we had that extra bodies on each one of them, maybe we have to pull 1, but we could run 2 crews now. We could get a lot more work done. And especially with, with the climate and culverts and the emphasis on that, we could start working and we could clear out our ditches. We can make sure things are done. The current highway foreman is doing a phenomenal job in making sure we're addressing these things. And this would give him then the capability of being able to get more work done. And then in talking with Mike today, the thing he also wants to bring up too is that, this is the first time in a long time for this vacant position we're starting to get an interest in people coming back. And it's building that culture back and bringing that back into where we can get individuals in and they can work their way up and see it as a career here, like we've had with the other individuals, some of the other, long-term employees that we have. So that's the attitude we're trying to foster. And this would really help in bringing that along with that. So, and the other thing too would be less reliance on water division for sidewalk removal. Because every time when they go out and they have to help us with snow removal, there's something in the water department or the wastewater department not getting done that day or 2 days, depending on the snow event. So this would really help out with that. And at the end, between the 2, like I said, you propose additional cost would be 182,900 in personnel. And then there, Jeremy and Mike are looking at approximately another $25,000 in material costs. That would be stone. That would be the extra work we could get done for those items. So if you were to move with this, that would be the numbers that would be reflective in those two categories. You want to stop there? Any questions? Where you want me to keep going?
It's kind of a good news story. Again, the way it was presented to me was that, yes, we've got a real crackerjack highway foreman, and he wants to even be more productive, and with a little bit more support, he could do so.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's needed. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, not to say it's not getting done, but we could get a lot more done. And then also too, it allows us, I mean, as you know, the town manager will get a phone call or get a complaint about something. And we try to be, if you let it sit, you don't get it done that day, it can get forgotten pretty quickly. And so we usually, a lot of the days we have to pull individuals off from a crew to go do something because something's happened, a tree, something, whatever it might be coming down. This would just give us that additional flexibility.
Any questions from any of you?
I just had a comment that, Brian, I know in other years I've seen you guys do, the street cleaning, and then there's catch basin cleanups and upkeep with the catch basins, and then line striping, right? Because all those are summer project work that, I've seen you guys do in the past that demand a lot of time and hours.
And one of the things too is like the co-op parking lot across the street. They've been asking us for the striping of that. And we've had like that. This is the additional work that it would be great to get done, but just due to what we have to get done, it doesn't allow for a lot of that type of extra work to get done that we do. So, going into other priorities, obviously a lot of it is like pretty, it's pretty boilerplate stuff. We're always looking at continue staff training, make sure everybody has professional growth. One of the key things, number 4, is a greater utilization of staff and material via the asset management GIS programs. That is part and parcel with Chris. These are all tied together. So if we move forward in the direction with that, it allows them to actually become more efficient and more accountable with it. It'll affect all of the divisions within the DPW with the utilization of the procurement of that software. So here's a quick overview. And thank you, Mary, for catching up. This is the ones I had missed it.
That's all right.
Yeah, no, I missed it on there. So.
I felt badly about it.
No, thank you for pointing it out. It's you look at things so often, so it goes by you, So here's basically, what it is. The key one that jumps out, obviously, I think, is bridge maintenance. And we've had the study. There's been a draft study done by Stantec. Chris and I have Chris has been reviewing it on and off with all his other stuff, but the goal is to have it, presented to you by the end of the year. But this is something that with the 23 bridges and culverts we have, they put together a plan. They did an analysis of all the structures. This is why the Coochy Heartland one is being done now, because they identified that deficiency within that study. But with that, though, is also how much money should we be putting away every year? What are we looking at? And then they do have it broken out by years. And like I say, a range is typically between about $200,000 to $400,000 that they look at. It's not saying that this is, what we should be putting away into a reserve so that we can start doing these repairs for these bridges for that. So just to jumpstart it, we're just asking for that $100,000. We had asked for it last year, but it just with the budget went out. We're just asking for it again to go.
The budget was tight and we didn't have the study and we didn't know when we would have the study. So.
But besides that, like I said, we did our best to keep everything down as much as possible. Trees is up 100%. We have more trees. That number could be $100,000 if you really wanted it to be it. But we did want to try to do that in working with the tree warden to make sure that we can get trees down that potentially could be dangerous.
And there is a separate budget for the tree warden.
Right.
So he's got some money and the highway has money and they work together.
Right. I mean, ours would be more, it's a proactive and reactive. I would think ours would be slightly more reactive if we had a tree fall down across the road compared to proactive where the tree warden's going out, looking at a tree in the right of way and then actually trying to identify what needs to be done with it, whether it needs to be taken down or pruned or whatever. So, but overall, I did my best to try to keep it within budget. We have a slight decrease for that. I'm a visual person. This is one of my pie charts, just gives you a simple breakdown of where the costs are at and, you know, out of that, all that, so. You take a look at just some of the highlights of what we're looking to do. Obviously, the big ticket item always is the paving. I think the last 2 years, Chris has done a phenomenal job in getting the paving done. I think we've probably got more miles of road paved in the last few years.
In fact, there were some done today.
Did they really pave today?
Well, they were halfway done
They did
last
that,
night.
didn't
I drove by.
Yeah.
I don't know if they went today. I
No, that
would
was
only
done
imagine
yesterday.
it.
That was done yesterday.
Okay, yeah.
So.
Yep.
But you know, the hard part we've had the last 2 years, they're a good company, but the current contractor Pike it's been tough scheduling wise to get them. They get a lot of other bigger jobs. I think they're handling it, but they got it sent, but they do a very good job of what we're doing. Really, basically, a lot of the costs here are pretty, you know, static quo. The one thing extra we are asking for is $20,000 for if you go down to equipment maintenance and contract service, 32118. The Jeremy is getting concerned that the age of the roof over the salt shed. And it's reaching its life expectancy of 20 years. And so we're just looking to start an allocation for that too, just in case when it does. And we're looking at maybe 4 to 5 years out for that on that. So then vehicle maintenance, we have a phenomenal and Eric equipment vehicle maintenance individual. He is doing so much more work in-house where we were sending stuff out to vendors. So that's where it's just increase. You'll just basically see what, if you take a look at the actuals from, you know, Eric's been here just a little over a year now, the actuals for 25, how much extra it was. We're just getting so much more done in-house than having sending out contractually. So. This sort of builds off of what we had done before, just giving you a little bit more public an overview of what we have planned for capital projects. I tried to break it out as best I could from our current CPA that we have, the CPI that CIP that we have, and where we're at. So the two big ones that we have knowing is the Gate Street, which we're still working on. I think there's a couple of easements we still need to secure, and you know, going for that. Then we still have the sidewalk improvement projects, which funding still to be determined. The Poduck and the Coochie Heartland ones, we've received municipal planning grants for them, or structures grants for them, so they're engineered. We still just need to go out there and find what sources of funding would be to do that. So that's going to be something that I put it in 27, but it's going to be something we're going to work on now to get the funding for that. But these are probably projects that won't be completed until sometime in 27 fiscal year.
Yeah, Podunk, we've already had some engineering work done on sizing it.
Right, so. Questions? Let's look at that.
Just a quick one, Brian. You know, where they're doing the new low barrier shelter, when I operated, listed as 25,000 gifts or whatever we were calling it. There was a kind of a culvert back there that was very problematic. And I think it was technically maintained or supposed to be maintained by the state.
That's a V-Trans culvert, yeah. So.
And so that's their baby, not our baby?
Correct.
Okay.
So when we had the rain event in May, there was a lot of the flooding that happened downtown was because that culvert blocked up. So, but yes, that is their culvert for drainage from there. It's not ours.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Anybody else have any questions? Is there anybody online or Eric? Okay, Eric, go ahead.
Madam Chair, and thank you, Brian, for your presentation and for being in the room tonight to deliver it. I had a question about, well, first, a real simple one about the two proposed operator one positions. I think it makes a lot of sense to include the materials that you would need for them to be productive in the summer maintenance budget, the 25,000 that you're proposing. On the winter side of the equation, I assume that the town has ample equipment to allow us to deploy 2 new operators in a productive capacity, like the new sidewalk plow that you're proposing and things like that. Like they'll be able to get out and be productive if they're added to the, during the winter maintenance as well.
Correct, yes. And there's also the redundancy too. I've talked to Jeremy too in regards to, how do we maybe have somebody on staff? It gets tiring after they've been plowing for 20, 25 hours. And do we take a look at maybe having a staff or 2 member that they can give themselves breaks? That they could send somebody home after plowing for 16 hours and sleep and then come back. So it provides us that capability too. That would be explored. It would be new here, but it also allows for that instead of having everybody work that 20, 25 hour straight shift when they're plowing. So.
Right. Great. Thank you. A second question. Yeah, and maybe we'll get into this when the bridge survey is presented to the board, but just kind of curious about the idea of using Fund 10, the operating funds, to fund a reserve that would then be used for potentially capital improvements to bridges, which might last, potentially long periods of time versus bonding for some of those projects. And I realize that the reserve might be used to fund a whole variety of projects, but I'm assuming some of them are going to be long-lasting bridge repairs, and just wondering how that, if we can get into that maybe in the bridge survey or tonight, just understanding the fairness part of that funding equation.
Well, that's a long question. Whether debt and do you pay now for something that future generations are going to utilize, or do you stretch it out over debt?
Every town wrestles with what kind of town they want to be. Do they want to be a reserve town that can buy needed equipment with cash because they've been putting aside some every year? Or do they want to have big bond issues to deal with bigger expenses? Different towns, different philosophies, and sometimes even the same town can change its philosophy depending on the latest election.
Okay, well, it seems like a larger discussion to have. I certainly understand reserves in the capacity of funding, pieces of equipment, trucks, and so on. But if a bridge, if it's a bridge repair that's, going to result in a bridge that lasts 50 years, having current generations funding that, as well as future, basically bonding it and having, paying for it over a longer span seems to make more sense to me for those longer term things. But look forward to the bridge survey.
Interesting pun you just used, Eric, talking about bridges and a span.
Those are all your questions, Eric?
That's all for right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Miranda, there's still nobody on, right? Okay, all right.
Move on.
Brian, you can go on.
So next is the water division and the 2 funds, 50 and 55. Not looking to increase any staffing here. Like I said, I put vacant Mike Martin's position as a water operator too. So whether we promote somebody in the upcoming year or not, we did have one individual who's going to be testing for the water operation for their operator 1 license. That will be something that hopefully we can go through, but Mike being a person who was a water operator too, and his last day tomorrow, I have that down as vacant. Once again, like you say, we get into the education, providing the availability of the individuals to have the training they need to get their water operation 3 certification. Again, it goes to the asset management plan and the multi-year development of what that'll bring, the utilization. And this is really a big one, the asset management plan, the 2 water ones, will help the water division greatly with just being more efficient and being able to find a valve. I mean, believe me, a lot of times there's a water main break and you have 4 valves you're looking at in a roadway, and you're not quite sure. You turn one off, this one, and it's like, okay, that didn't really shut it down, but you just knocked the water out to Jimmy, 3 other houses or whatever like this, you know? So that's the real premise of the asset management plan, is gonna identify that and help these guys. You know, they should be able to have their tablet, whip it out, look at it. This is the valve I need to turn off.
And also as a budgeting tool.
As
Yeah,
a budgeting
yeah,
tool
yeah.
with that too. And then like I say, I mentioned here too, it's the LCRR. And then like beginning, as I mentioned before, the future replacement of the lead and galvanized water service lines. One item we are gonna look to tackle, and I don't think they've done them in a while, but we do have in a budget to replace 6 to 8 aged fire hydrants. So this will be, we'll talk to Chief Cooney about this and coordinate that with him in regards to making sure they have fire hydrants for fire protection with them. This is, you've been here, you've seen this before. This just gives you an overview of what they have. The last few years, we've been working on the green sand filters. That's what uses the manganese and whatever little iron we have in there. So we finished that. So that's one of the reasons, like I said, this budget's not down to, we've been budgeting like $70,000-$80,000 the last few years to have the 2 of them replaced. So we don't have that. And like I say, probable life will be 12 to 15 years that we have, where they'll have to start to get back into that budget cycle again. And I didn't really want to put that right now, but that would be something probably like say 5 to 7 years out, future budgets, you start thinking about, you start putting away a little bit of money for that down the road. Currently right now, we knock on wood, but with the dry summer, as you know, we did well. No pun intended.
It's good.
So, and both of them, we were very fortunate that the aquifers that we have, but there's always been talk though, that should we be looking at increasing capacity by having another well in that area down there, So, and that's something I think we'll take a look at a little bit farther in regards to, how do you do that? And that's a part of what I put in for the capital plan portion of it when we get to there. So once again, this is a pretty big one. Like I say, not a lot, was able to cut quite a bit of money from the budget from last year's. And lovely pie charts I love these. So what they are looking for some upgrades is solenoid replacement and engineering for the chlorine pit upgrade. Jeremy says it's something that needs to be taken a look at and done. So he just wants to start the process with that to get that going. Then we have the 32,000 for the or 23,000, but total 32 for the fire hydrants. We're going to start looking at replacing some of our larger meters or 2-inch. So they'd like to get in and start replacing some of those. Meters never read fast, they always read slow as they get older, so. And with that, even with the funding this year, I was able to, with, cut cost, I was able to, put $100,000 into a reserve. And then, almost $67,000 for engineering for future water projects with that, so. It's not enough. It won't fix Wilder. It's not going to be for the project there. We're still going to have to bond for that. But I look at this more so as we have that catastrophic failure someplace. We have that 100-foot of water line that has to be replaced now. But that's what this reserve fund can help come in and tackle at that time. Then this goes into the presentation that we were looking for. So I did try my best to try to break it out and give you some years and what we're looking at. Obviously, the 2 that we have right now going are the Nut Lane and Latham Works, and then Wilder. We got very good news is that just out of the blue about a month or so ago, they said they were SRF, the state revolving loan fund eligible. So John, I think you guys have been putting that together to see what's best, whether SRF funding or actually bonding would be best.
Chris and I will be in front of the board soon, asking for these decisions about necessity that you can remember are always a first step in the bonding process. So we'll have probably 2 items for the ballot to get voter support on. Again, in the greatest of likelihoods, the rates of the of the waters of the Hartford water system will pay for the debt service. But because these are supported ultimately by the entire town, all of the voters in town get to vote on them. So that's why they'll be on the ballot. And Chris is looking at the best financial deal, whether it be the bond bank or this low interest loan program.
One of the considerations, if you go through the SRF, is that it kicks in, excuse me, some federal requirements because of the money passed down through, like Davis Bacon. So that was another thing we're taking a look at, is that would it be more expensive, even though you have a lower interest rate, would it be more expensive to go through the state compared to just going to the open market where you don't have a lot of these federal mandates of where you have to do certain wages, buy American and whatnot like that.
The third option may be USDA funding.
Correct.
Thanks to Mary and our auditor for suggesting that we pursue it. In the past, I had thought Hartford was too wealthy a town to be eligible for that, but we're going to revisit that.
And I actually looked at that, and because I've used in prior years, I've used USDA quite a bit in New York. And I looked at it this year, eligible towns or something they're saying we're not eligible for, John. And I have to get with that. It was just something like WEP ineligible, whatever that means. I don't know.
But the key is that when you go to the vote, you tell them that you're going to borrow that money. You don't have to identify the funding source yet.
Right.
So
that's the two that are on the plate that are underway right now. And then the other ones are just ones, like you said, there's quite a bit, if you add this up, there's quite a bit of money needed for the water system. The problem that we have though is that there are a limited number of users within it. So we're not looking to expand the system with this money. This is just replacing what's already in the ground. And that's a part of, I think the issue is going to be facing for years to come is how do you take on this debt service and pay for it? Okay, without dramatically increasing, rates with that. And it's not just a challenge in Hartford; it's a challenge all over. But you faced it; it's universal.
Yeah.
For that, so and then we get into some of the tanks. I talked to Jeremy about that. Visual inspections of the structurals of the tank should be done. I don't think Jeremy can remember. It's been many years since they've been done, so we should probably have them taken a look at.
sometimes you get divers in there to take pictures and whatnot.
What do the tanks represent? Are they for fire protection?
No, that's a gravity fed system. So what happens to them is we pump the water up to those tanks, and as it comes down to that, it's the gravity that pushes it back down. So, and then 2032 and beyond, this is where we talk about the groundwater protection. About taking a look at that. And Chris, right now, we're probable estimate cost would be 3 to 5 million. If just to take a look at if there was going to be room for growth, if we were going to look to expand the system, just so we could have that third well producing water for that. And then I just put in here, like say, the green sand filter as you start looking forward down the road with that. So. And, just to give a little, my other thing I did, limitations, what's going on, obviously, like we just talked about, it's where do you get the money? It's securing the funding, making those smart investments, the asset management plan, this is all combined part and parcel will help with that. Where you can take a look at where your breaks are at, what's going on. And we can go from there. And then also to the development of the rate structure will help with all of that. And the last one I put in there, because I'm sort of a proponent of this, is if you do want to take a look at how do we help ourselves pay for future debt service and whatnot, is that potential to expand the area outside. You have to. If you can't just keep it in this little bubble. We
Talking about beyond our town borders, you mean?
Correct. Yeah, you have to. It's if you're going to want to maintain it, we just can't keep it within the geographical boundaries of the town board. You have a resource here that's very valuable to people outside of it, and they'll pay a premium for it. So it can really, in the long term, if you do it smartly, it can help offset the cost for town residents by expanding outside the border and taking a look at that. So.
we're aware of,
Tim had a question, then I do too.
we're aware of some political sensitivities along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, my view on that, I just think that's kind of, I understand people feeling that way, but, honestly, I think Norwich has struggled with failing septic for a long time. And the reality is, if we could sort of create a win-win situation where they're happy, we're happy, and it's a win for the town, then I think we should take it under serious consideration.
That's not the only community that's made inquiries recently.
The question I had is only based on where I grew up. Because in Nebraska, water came from the Olalla Aquifer. And because of the large agriculture use, it's depleting. And so I was just wondering, has there ever been any hydrologist or geologist or whoever it would be that, can look at our aquifer, and are we constantly maintaining, or, I know you said we did great during this drought, but if we have continued periods of drought, I was just wondering, how's the health of our aquifer?
Well, that's a good question. Going from Chris, the state has them fairly well mapped out, but can you give a capacity to what it would be? I don't know. That would be something that I think would have to be looked at by those engineers and scientists that have that skill set to be able to do something like that.
And it would be good to involve both Chris and Jeremy into that discussion, because Jeremy looks at these systems basically every day. And I know Chris has concerns about, what's the word? Overusing the water resource as possibly depleting the lifespan of some of it.
But I think that's a part, if you were to take a look at that study, that would be a part of that well development. Getting that information at that time, because you would have to actually source it where it's going to be at and go from there. So that'd all be a part of that. So
Thank you.
then we just get into Queechee. I don't know if we want to stop, if there's any questions in regards to the Wilder
I think
Hartford.
people would ask if they have anything on the Wilder and Hartford water.
So time frame wise related to Wilder, because we have gotten a lot of concern over the years around those breaks on that. I mean, what are we looking at for when we could actually do that project and hopefully make the breaks stop?
Well, if we get the bond authorization, this town meeting, I don't know why, I think they were relatively well engineered and kind of prepared to move forward with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably 95% designed, Tim. So I know I want to say, I think whether we've gotten it yet, there was still V-Trans was still giving us an issue with an easement. So whether that's been resolved yet or not, but that would be, it's just getting through the system and getting that easement. But it should be definitely, if it's voted upon, I would think by next summer, it should be a project that's getting underway.
Nut Lane might take a little bit longer to be shovel ready, but not too far beyond that.
But like you say, with what we did with the crossing underneath the railroad track, we've taken care of the immediate concern that we needed to have with that.
Right.
So then going down Latham Works now is more of just replacing that aged line. But the dire consequence of that line blowing out by the railroad tracks has been eliminated now. So.
Thank you, Brian.
So then we move on to Queechee. Here's just, some overview of Queechee. Obviously, this is a system we inherited. It's not something that's been designed by, town DPW staff over the
Can you
decades.
kind of explain that to maybe some of the newer members? What does that mean as we inherited it? You're talking from the Queechee Lakes Association.
Correct. So you had the Queechee Service Corporation and the Queechee Development Corporation back in the 60s and 70s that, built out Queechee. From my research that I did, we were always involved, even back in the early 70s, as the operator of the systems. But it wasn't until 2000, 2001 that we actually took it over ownership wise. So there's a lot out there. We have a lot of drawings and plans. A lot of how the system was designed would not have probably been designed the way if it had been a municipal system from the start. Lack of meters, lack of standardization of how things were installed and stuff like that.
Can we give it back?
What's that?
Can we give it back?
It's tempting, especially the wastewater systems.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that, like you said, we're aware this is the current water rate structure that we have, and it also goes for sanitary. The individual we're working with is determines it's a bloody mess, you know,
It's a hodgepodge, a mishmash of inconsistency, and customers ask us to explain it, and we're hard pressed to do it. So we want to bring some rationality and explainability to the topic
Correct.
in Queechee.
We're getting there. There's just a lot to it, but we're getting there with it, so. Once again, this just provides some more of the different, you can see there's more pump stations. The topography in Queechee makes it a little bit more hard for expansion. If this more for water is more so a finite system in regards to how much we could expand without major capital improvement in there, so. But once again, we're going to be looking at a fairly significant reduction in costs for 2027. Like pie charts. We have, this is year 2 for the Queechee Gorge Bridge. We have a utility agreement with V-Trans that they're supporting our water main. We've been out there a few times. We're actually working on that side of the bridge now. We've been out there, we've expressed our concern and made sure that they're doing what they need to do out there to protect our 8-inch water main that goes across there, so. And then there's a little bit, like I said, there's a little bit of money just left over for engineering capital reserves for the water system out there. Then once again, trying to take a look at what we can do for more of a long-term plan for capital projects. 2 that jumped out, and these are once again from the CIP. We do have 2 smaller ones. I'll push Chris on this to get working on this, because this is ones where we could potentially just pay for them out of reserves. They've been on the list for a while. It's just one of the ones that just not have been pushed forward with it. So the bigger ones that will cost money would be the Queechee Main Street. This is where we talk about we wanted to design this system. If you're familiar with the area out there, if you can picture where the Queechee Club is at, the well is on the other side of the river, basically on the other side of the golf course at the very end of Lake Pineo. So there's a crossing there that goes into the golf course under the river and then goes to that area that serves those homes over there. Then if you go out to Queechee Main Street where the paving is going on to Queechee West Hartford, where there is no 12-inch main out there. Okay. That main, that portion of the village is served by the water main that comes underneath the bridge. And so theory being that if we should ever lose the bridge again in the flooding, if we can replace the line that's going underneath the river is aged, it needs to be replaced, but then we connect from the Queechee Club down to West Hartford Road. Now we have a redundancy, we have a loop. That God forbid, anything should ever happen. The bridge has been built. We did good in 23 with it, but still came within about a foot of it. That, if we were to ever lose that, we would then be able to supply water to that section of there. So that's those 2 projects, 2 separate projects, but they would be combined together in getting that done. So, and it would go the other way too. If we should ever lose under the river by the Queechee Club, they would have water being able to go the other way now to do those condo units and those areas up over there. So. Like I say, once again, it's the generating the revenue for the debt service. And like I put here, the initial concept of the community with a finite number of users, it doesn't really allow for expansion too much. It's not like Hartford, Wilder, where we have growth, better area for growth because of the topography and surrounding availability of users. Out there, we really don't. It is more of a finite system. And this is where really the rate structure and how we allocate fees for the future is going to be fairly paramount in maintaining a rational rate structure out there. So. So that's the two water divisions. If there's any questions.
Anybody, any questions? Eric, any questions from you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pretty good. I'll probably just hold one comment until the end.
All right.
So wastewater.
Our wastewater. So these are funds 60 and 65. What we currently have out in the White River plant is we have one chief operator, which is shared with Taquichi. We have an assistant, assistant chief operator, one plant operator 3, and 2 plant operator 1s. What I'm proposing is this would be split between both systems, would be one more operator 1. And what I've noticed since my time here is we don't have staff that are familiar with both facilities, and having that ability to where if somebody's out or something happens, that you have that individual that could go from plant to plant. So this would be that position. They would come in, they would learn both plants. And it's really a ground up type of, it would be an entry level position to come up with that. Currently right now, I just did it at a 70%, 30% split between the two. That's how the chief operator is split. I mean, that could always be adjusted if you find out later down the road it's to be 50-50 or whatever. I'm just was keeping it at the current 70-30% split. The personnel cost for this would be an additional $63,403. That would be just for that portion for
the
Wilder.
for the Wilder.
For the
Okay.
Wilder. And then on the other side would be the 30% when we get to the Taquichi plant for that. Basically, like you said, with workload shortages at both plants. So here's some of the priorities: develop an asset management plan. This is all part and parcel with basically the asset management plan programs. What Chris is going to do next week. We still need to continue to eliminate the stormwater infiltration. We have the CSO going on, but obviously this is a roof drains. This is, we've got that 1272 notice that we have to do. So it's just completing that, and then also doing a sanitary rate study, which would be in combination with the water rate study, getting that. Just gives you a quick little overview of what they do. Same stuff from other years. Once again, just some of the normal stuff that they do on a yearly basis. And as you know, last year I combined Wilder. There was no reason for Wilder to be this separate, so that's why you see the blank there. In regards to that, we folded that in for this year's budget season for that. And once again, there's been able to cut the budget for this one. So for capital, we are looking once again to keep going with some capital improvements. As you know, we just did one for the UV system. This would be, I gave you that, this is the second phase of what we're doing for the UV system on there. Then also a grit screw replacement. The grit screw is a conveyor belt that actually takes from the centrifugal system, which is what dries the sludge and makes it into the grit. And then it goes on about a 30-foot conveyor belt, and it goes and it drops down into the truck, and that's what we haul off to Lebanon for to get rid of that. So these are some of the items that they came up with, and then also for Wilder, the control panel is needs to be replaced out there. So,
And we've seen some of that in your SIGAX, right?
yeah. So, and then electricity sort of kind of surprised me because the other ones, but for some strange reason, the electricity for this plant increased quite a bit, in 26. So I did have to, just increase it in there for that. So. And then we just moved a little bit of money around. This is one of the things, like, what does contract services really do? And compared to some of the items that other contract items we have. And, you know, it seems like in the past, anytime we had to use a vendor to install something, it was going under contracted services, even though it was an equipment repair. So to me, it got lost a little bit. Like if I had to replace a pump, why not put it in maintenance where general maintenance would be at, whether you're doing it in-house or with a contractor? So this is just shifting some of that monies around a little bit to truly reflect, because to me, it gives you a better idea of what you're really looking, what's there, what you're spending the money on, because things can get kind of blurred in contract service. In my opinion, it can get kind of blurred in contract services. So that's why you just see a little bit of a shift in monies in that between like contract services, equipment maintenance. And then it hasn't been funded for, you know, quite a few years, but just a reestablishment. They do have a fairly healthy capital reserve, but just starting it once again to put some of the monies back in that we've started to take out over the last few years. You know, we've been dealing with a lot of issues, equipment issues as they've been coming up. So there's not too much in way besides the CSO one and a sanitary line on Holiday Drive. There's really not all that much in the way of capital projects like for the collection system that needs to be done. And as things pop up, the pump stations and whatnot, have you seen a lot of the requests I put forward to you? We've been taking care of those capital issues as they come forward. But what is coming up that you take a look at is that typical 20-year analysis engineering of the plants. Both plants were last looked at back in the late 2000, like from 2009 to 2012, 13 is when the upgrades were done at both plants. So you're coming up on that time frame again. I don't see, like you said, without any major, it's not like we have capacity issues or of whatnot of that nature. It would be more looking at having the aged equipment and replacing some of the major bigger systems at that time that might need to be done. And I'm just looking for you to just take a look at doing the engineering of it through that now and then going from there. So that you
An assessment.
Yeah, an assessment of it. So and like I say, once again, it's just, you know, Chris is going to be pushing for, he wants to do his own individual, as we're doing for water. Chris wants to do it for the two wastewater treatment plants too.
Right.
So that's one where the bad thing is, though, the state won't provide us grant funding for that. Okay, so do we use the engineering reserve or whatnot, but we'd be looking for that to develop that asset plan for the two wastewater systems too. So. And I just go back here too with that expansion of the system, as we talked about for water. You know, how do you help increase your revenues for that? Going into Queechee, you have one chief operator, part-time. We have a part-time assistant operator and then two plant one operators. Goes in line with what I'm saying, or add that one person, 2.3. Would just basically do the same thing, give that additional staff capacity. And for this, the proposed personnel cost is $26,678. So. And basically, like I said, it's a lot of the same stuff from what we did for White River. We're just looking to do the training and whatnot. The difference between what's called the I&I out in Queechee, the I&I, the infiltration, infill and infiltration, the water, the groundwater that comes into the system in Queechee is not coming so much from buildings or what, it's coming from the actual ground itself. Old lines, you get groundwater coming into your manholes, coming into cracks within the lines. That is the biggest issue that we have right now with the flow that's coming in, especially during rain and storm events, where there's been times where the plant has been almost at capacity. It's not because, it's because of that. And we've been pushing staff. This is like the slip lining we just did for the Nut Lane project. It would be no different than that, coming in and doing the slip lining of that project. And I'm pushing staff for them to get Chris is like, well, we need is a map. So it's gonna be something to work on, but that really needs to be done. I think that's the biggest collection system projects that's gonna be looking down the road, is taking the system and slip lining those lines in the manholes to decrease that I&I.
And when you say it inherited the water system, we also inherited some leach fields
Oh,
that are
yeah,
very
yeah.
demanding in terms of manpower hours and cost to maintain these aging leach fields.
I mean, in the summertime, typically during the course of a week, at least one staff member is probably spending 10 to 15 hours just mowing the fields that need to be mowed.
What are those leach fields supporting, like condo complexes? Or-
You get up, you'd be surprised where some of them are at too, Tim, where they're at, so it takes a little bit of. So that's where having this additional staff, having that other individual there could help burden, reduce that burden that the individuals that are there now, they're really stretched thin at both facilities, staffing wise, so.
Given the location of the leach fields, would it be impossible to redirect that to the plant?
There's one that potentially we've been talking about that could be done that way, but some of the other ones I doubt it. Just due to the hills and valleys, the capital improvement, you would have to put booster stations in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So. Once again, this gives, and it, like John talks about, we got the 16 subsurface leach fields. We have to have annual inspections done of them every year. Not a big ticket item, but it's just a lot of requirements that we have to the state that we have to maintain permits and whatnot like that. So. This is the one budget did go up a little bit for that, but it's just reflective of what's needed. But it's only a 2.77% increase. So in regards to capital improvements, it was kind of hard this year with all the stuff that's happened out in Cleachy into identifying what needs to be done, like to project, project what pieces of equipment to replace. The better approach we were taking a look at is let's just have money there because we know there's going to be system components that need to be done. Okay. But we're having a hard time committing to like, well, let's fix this piece of equipment. Let's fix that piece of equipment. So what I'm just asking for is $150,000 for those capital projects. This money would be transferred anyway. It's not like we're raising anything or it's going to impact rate increase with that. So it would be, let's say they only do $75,000. That would just be the amount of money that would need to be transferred out of reserve to cover that. But initially they wanted 200,000, but I said, if you can't give me the projects, we're going to knock it down. So I went down to 150 for that. But there's just a lot out there. We've had, as you know, we've had a lot of expenses with that facility out there over the last couple of years. So, but with it though, I still can put money back in to the fund and also do it for engineering. So both of the plants are in a good place reserve wise, but we know there's going to be capital expenses that are coming down the road for it. So for projects that take a little longer out would be, as I talk about the I&I. And once again, it's kind of hard to project a cost for this because it could vary by what section you're doing. Typically a lot of this is done by linear foot. So whether we're doing 1,000 linear feet or 3,000, so the cost would vary by that.
And that's TV cameras.
What's that?
TV cameras.
We're going to get the cameras this year.
Yeah.
We got the budget in the camera to get the cameras this year. Chris is looking at, we talked about one of those leach fields, community leach field 3 needs to be rehabbed at a cost of $350,000. So as we talked, this is for the Birchwood condos, and that would come out of the reserves. And then just going forward would be to continue evaluation of the leach fields. And just as we put money away, it's just going to be a continuation process, especially with these leach fields. Just every several years, you're going to, if you can get 15, 20 years out of the field, you're doing good. It's just as they come up and what's failing. mean, you could have a leach field good this year, next year it's failing money. So,
Probably why the grass grows so fast.
so,
Isn't that an Irma Bombeck quote? Grass is always greener over the leach field. Yeah.
so this one is too, like you said, a 20-year analysis of potential upgrades to the plant. But not like the water system. The wastewater system, is bigger. Actually where I live at on the top of the hill, I'm a part of our sanitary system. I have a well, but I'm a part, and there's a lot of lots that are available. So there's a lot of potential for future growth at this facility. Control the I&I, we get that down, then you really we not have to take a look at a plant expansion. So that's where you could start to add more houses to the system. As long as we can control the I&I, you don't have to worry about a plant expansion with that. But this is definitely an area where there's future growth and capital could come from that. We just gotta get the individuals out there. I know there's been an individual out there who's been, looking, there's a few houses, spec houses they're looking to put out there. But there is a potential for growth out in Queechee on the sanitary side of the house. And then like you say, we get into the additional water revenue, the sanitary rate study. This is all stuff that, just like Queechee, we got to get the water done, and then we can tie part and parcel with how the sanitary rates would be. So, wastewater questions.
Questions from anybody? On the wastewater system? Anybody online? Okay, Eric, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you again, Brian, for your presentation. Just looking back over the wastewater and highway, you've got 3 proposed positions. Is that correct?
Well, 2 for highway, then 1 for wastewater, correct?
Right. If the board and the town says, yeah, we want to fund all 3 of those, but just not all in one fiscal year, which would you prioritize?
Well, being enterprise funds is a little bit different. I think if you're looking for the highway, I would like to obviously have all 3. But the enterprise fund one is more or less, I think there's more, the funding availability for the one position for wastewater is easier to fill because it's not a tax. You're not looking to add it to the general fund. So to me, Eric, the wastewater one is easier. It's, I'm proposing it, but it's very easy to be absorbed within the 2 budgets. And then the highway ones become a question of how does it impact the overall general fund budget for you guys? So.
Okay, thank you.
Tim?
Eric, I hope you can hear me. I just want to throw out this thought. I honestly think that, the strain that I see on the winter maintenance staff, in terms of dealing with White River and dealing with the roads at large. I understand that that it's easier to hire that from a financial where you nest it kind of thing, but I really think that we need, greater staffing in the winter to deal with the stuff that goes on. So I'm a strong advocate for getting these positions funded. So thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So, solid waste.
Here we go. So solid waste.
Talking trash.
And recyclables.
Yes. So once again, this is another one I am asking not for a new position, but just to increase the part-time position to a full-time position. And that proposal would increase this budget by $54,237. And I don't know did you share, John, the first quarter, the third quarter information?
I did.
So I think if you saw the little data, I just had to do our third quarter retrack reporting. So I think you'll see that there's been quite an increase since curbside's gone away on what we're taking in down there. I can tell you now, unfortunate, but we had the one part-time individual resign over the incident that happened. And so the staff there is they're working. They're working quite a bit down there. It is very, very, very busy down there. So hopefully I'll be happy in putting to John a part-time individual in the next couple of weeks. But come the 27 budget, if maintain this, we definitely need to have a full-time individual down there. Because right now, like we had an individual who got married. It took one of the highway guys. I lost basically one of our highway guys a whole week. And for being down there to help cover for staffing down there. It's sorely needed to do that, so. Priorities, once again, is to, do what we need to do for the new SWIP. Finalize the C&D stockpile issue that we've been facing. And then just have, to me, my recommendation would be have a greater coordination with the Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste District. We've had some conversations with them. They really are looking to partnership with us, especially in the area of HHW, and how we can help each other with that. So I think that should be a top priority. So here's, let me tell you, just try to give some numbers. This is from last October to this, to this year. Just gives you a quick overview of what we've taken in. And as you can see, it goes up. The HHW, as you can see, we did one event in July. And as you can see, it's quite expensive to do HHW events.
It's really off the charts crazy, actually. That's my personal opinion.
We're mandated. I mean, as you saw with the SWIP, the state, we're mandated to do this. This is a conversation we've been having with Greater Upper Valley. When the facility was designed, the HHW buildings are there. We have them. We just haven't utilized. So it's utilizing them. There's probably not a lot of work that needs to be done to bring them back into usable shape. And even speaking with Greater Upper Valley, they're constantly looking at funding sources, great state grants and whatnot to potentially help us bring that facility and start doing that. And do it, not as a full-time thing, but more as like a seasonal thing from like maybe May through now, that we have it open, that people could get rid of their hazardous household waste. So. Slight reduction here in the budget. One of the key things that's been a driver, but we don't think it's going to be needed, is the money we've been putting away for C&D. If we can get the state to do that, then what we're anticipating is the monies we have in reserve for right now should cover what we need to do if we can keep it in place. Okay, so. So first one is just like you said, that the contracting, this is all of our fees and whatnot. I did increase it a little bit over 20,000, just due to the higher volume that we're dealing with that. It did increase our HHW quite a bit. Like I said, given the cost of what we're looking at for $60,000. And then one equipment item I'm looking to do is we do need a new compactor down there. There's 3 compactors down there. One's been inoperable for years. And the other 2 are they're hanging on. I mean, any day now I could come and say we lost one and then we need to replace the compactor. So thankfully we can get it off of a consortium bid price. So, but I just put it in there for now that we definitely got to replace the one compactor that's not working right now. So. Questions?
So, a couple things.
Okay. go
So
ahead,
Brian,
Jeff.
this is, thank you for your presentation. This July-September comparison that was shared, and I don't know if it's, if this is, I guess it's not technically in our notes for this meeting, so right? I mean,
That's a good point. No, I did not. I don't think, Lana, I don't think we uploaded that for the packet. No, I don't think so.
okay, well, is it
Correct.
appropriate to go over it then, or should I?
I think you could make a broad reference that you have some
So
information about.
we have some
quarterly-
information comparing both the materials coming into the facility and then permits and punch cards sold. And I just had a question around that, whether we have a little bit of a breakout on that as well, on the percentage of those permits sold that are Hartford.
These should all be Hartford.
They're all Hartford?
Yeah.
So nobody's buying permits?
Well, no, I mean, what you're looking at here is just permits that were sold through Hartford residents.
Oh, okay,
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 so when we sell permits, we allocate permits to the Greater Upper Valley through their district,
Mhm.
and then they distribute them out to the 10 towns that they represent. These numbers only reflect, I've asked staff this, these numbers only reflect what have been sold to Hartford residents.
And would you expect that these permits sold, are they residential customers for the most part? I mean, are
It
they?
should be, yeah, because it's a residential permit, there's a commercial permit we do, so I
Okay.
just asked for the residential one. So-
Okay, and then, so I was just kind of trying to get a sense of who's using the facility at large in our town, because we have, according to the census, 4,765 households. So it's about a quarter of the town that's actually buying permits to use the facility, just for perspective for everybody. So it's not, there must be a decent number of people in town either doing private hauler or going to Lebanon or doing something else. Just, I know we've kind of talked a lot about the curbside, and I think it would be worthwhile if we could do this perhaps through the communications through JD Hawks, some type of survey, like a community survey, just to kind of get a little bit of a pulse on, where people are with both curbside recycling and the use of this facility, and get some perspective on that. So, but thank you.
Sorry.
Just to respond to that, I mean, I think, yeah, the idea for a survey has come up. My concern would just be how to have like, good data.
Mhm.
Surveys are just really hard.
Yeah, I
Unless you're gonna knock on doors.
Mhm.
Or, I mean, if we wanted just to survey the users of the transfer station, then someone could literally ask, stand there and ask people.
Yeah, like.
But I think it would be like something in person like that, because if we just send out a link, like, I mean, we saw recently with the Housing
Same.
and Homelessness Committee, they got like 40 responses to their survey. So it takes a lot of outreach, I think, to have like
Good data.
anything that would be representative of what the information that we were looking for. So I just am hesitant to, while it would be excellent, just knowing what it would take to really do it well in a way that produces something meaningful. I just have, reservations about it.
Yeah.
Or just the point that, or just the point of using a survey, giving people a certain impression about what the future might hold in terms of select board action or not. I'll just leave it there.
One other thought, like going to the facility, the roadway in is pretty brutal. I mean, I don't know whether, I remember Lanny at one point throwing out this idea that we could just chop the pavement away and kind of have a hard packed road in that at least is smooth and approachable. I just think that it would be worthwhile in this budget cycle to get that cost in there and make, it's one part of the facility I find kind of disconcerting when you come in and use it, and it's like, you feel like you're need 4-wheel drive, it's kind of, I just think it would be worthwhile to take that approach road and do some work on it at the next budget cycle.
I think Chris had a scary number associated with that,
Some $1,000, yeah.
400,000 or so.
Yeah. So.
I think what I was thinking about what you were saying, Tim, and I said of that 4,000 plus homes, residences, it's difficult also to kind of survey that, because you've got homeowners associations, and they do things as a block, not as individual residences. So that's not, it's not always easy to.
But maybe these numbers can be useful just to compare usage at the transfer station from one period to another, maybe assuming that that's all curbside related, right? And maybe that demonstrates that the people who were once receiving that service have found an alternative, at least at the transfer station.
Yeah, another thought.
Ida, go ahead.
I mean, another potential way to get at some data would be, and this is sort of goes along with a point I've made a couple other times, but to reach out to the private haulers and see if they're willing to share data on Hartford customer usage and, you know, any increases in recycling pickup that they saw. I don't know if they would, you know, that would be them doing a favor to us, but that could be another data source. And then it could be another way. I just do think in general, we should be building more ties as a municipality with the private haulers that are serving our town to see if there can be opportunities for collaboration in general. So that's another thought on data sources potentially.
So there still is revenues. I stopped sharing because I know you wanted the public to like to have it. So I can, if I can go again, just quickly, just go quick over the revenues. And I'm just going to scroll down because there's only a couple of pages. If I can, hold on. Oh,
Now you're paying the
Revenues
price
are on
for a
page
long presentation.
I know.
Bless you.
Well, I did. I know, like you said, it's that you can't see, and the public likes to be able to.
Yeah.
You're talking to be able to see. And I am not technically challenged. I am technically challenged.
It's coming, it's coming.
So.
I have it here, and then there's this one, because the other one is the Bugbee.
Why don't you just pull it up and then you can advance
17,
until you
page
get there.
17 on your-
For revenues, it's like 63,
Oh,
62.
So there's
63.
revenues. They're still bringing up the revenues.
Yeah.
Slight decrease, water looking there, but for the most part offsetting. Increase in transportation. I mean, in the transfer station, that's obviously just due to the increased number of permits and whatnot like that.
Right.
But overall, we're at we're about a break even for what's anticipated for cost. And like I said, this does not then include the offset for the taxes from the general fund for summer and winter maintenance. So. Like you take, that's that Fund 10 up there. That's the money's, the primary source of that money is our state aid grant.
Great.
That we get from V-Trans. And if we took a look at that, John, if that check that just came in times 4, it's going to be about $309,000.
Yeah, which is, makes
A
sense.
little-
Every year it goes up a little bit,
A
it
little
seems.
bit. So we're a little low on that, but that's been a couple of dollars more than what that was.
Yeah.
Um,
In fact, let me adjust our revenue expectations based on that. That's a good point. A few $1,000 helps.
Just a breakdown of where things come out and how much of what is exactly what. I like to say for Fund 10, it's a little bit misleading because it doesn't include that portion. I don't know that, what it's going to be for the general fund. So,
Yeah.
okay. And ladies and gentlemen, that is it for tonight. So.
Okay.
So
Does Eric have any questions? Doesn't look like anybody has any questions.
That's either a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know.
We'll tell you later in the budget cycle.
I guess one question would be, I mean, do we want, maybe this is for the board, like, do we want to see hard numbers and estimates and percentage increase kind of by the additional proposed positions to help us make decisions?
Happily, that's going to be part of this process as we get to kind of wrap up, which is where you start making the sausage, right?
Yeah.
That'll be listed out for you,
Mhm.
all of the proposed additional positions, and you can consider the impact on the bottom line at that point.
I just had one other thought around capital budgets, because it strikes me that, you know, there's a lot of different designations, and obviously with a change of you and perhaps this board and whatever over the years, what tends to happen with those sort of like those revenue, you know, those capital funds, if you will, it gets a little cloudy.
Yeah.
Maybe by design, but I think it would be beneficial almost to have like a CIP schedule that says current fund balance, you know, money going in this year and kind of targeted.
I think this preceded your involvement on the board, but the town did secure money to conduct I won't call it a capital improvement program development. We've already got several siloed capital improvement plans by department. But the idea is to have someone integrate those through a process that involves the select board and the public and the staff to provide to you, hopefully as early as maybe September for the next budget cycle, a way to look at all of the capital projects and funding sources and prioritization, so that rather than at that later point judging what's more important, putting money into a sewer in Queechee or onto a new highway truck for the fire department or new truck for the fire department, you've already prioritized them.
Right, that
So it should
may-
be as easy as just saying, next up,
Yeah.
plug it in the budget.
I mean, the other thought around that is I had the unfortunate part of my career managing condominium complexes. And they would often try and create capital budgets for future needs.
Yep.
And the key challenge around that was the inflation. They wouldn't, you know, honestly, any money that we're putting in, we should be building this inflation index year to year that inherently makes that grow properly to actually pay for the item at that point.
To keep it in that designated area rather than just bulking up the general fund and cushioning
Correct.
expenses.
Because
Yeah.
what, you know, for
You can
example.
blow
the
that
most of the-
interest money.
Yeah, most of the condos in the Upper Valley were built in the eighties and they, you know, they're hitting like roof life cycles. And most of these associations don't have the money to do the roofs
Right.
because it's just not, you know.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian,
Appreciate it.
let's
Brian.
say how much we're looking to the future and thinking about how we're going to miss you, Brian.
Yes,
Thank you, I appreciate
absolutely.
that, so.
It's sitting here, it's kind of hard to think that's maybe my last budget.
Well,
I've
as
been
to,
doing it for many, many years.
to Tim's point, there's always change in life and always turnover, but it's always sad to lose institutional memory.
Yeah.
And it's a shame and that we'll lose you, but Jeremy and Chris will carry the ball forward with whoever we hire.
Thank you for the birthday card, I appreciate it.
Ah, my pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Brian. Okay. Move to adjourn. Moved by Mike. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Tim, thank you for seconding that. I think I need to do a roll call vote, so. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi,
Good night,
Thank
Eric.
you. Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.
good night all. Thank you.
Lana, thank you.